record last week's seminar and then get it back out to the community. Honestly, just because of time, and I think we're all feeling it, we didn't have that opportunity, so I apologize. It's not the standard and level that we want to be, but it's been, I think, a crazy week for all of us. So as long as you all don't mind, I think we're going to try to forego re-recording it, but send out the slideshow from last week's presentation when we send out the link and slideshow from this week's presentation. And I hope you all understand that. We're week 3. Good news is I'm officially on my 15th day on the job, and I appreciate all the support. I've interacted with people so much in a technology way that it feels like I've been a part of the community for a while. So I do appreciate all the support. Let me click here so we can jump on in. Talked about the agenda for today. At the end, we'll go over important dates, but let's jump right on in. We made it through week 2. We want to thank everybody for sending Stacy their photos. Please continue to do that. I think it's especially animals. I'm a dog person myself, but it looks like we have Grizz up there. We have Belle. Kate, I think last week shared something with her team with Blue, who's her dog. Please share that stuff with Stacy, anything that you have going. I think it's just a nice way to take some of the stress and anxiety that we're feeling, that we're all feeling with COVID-19. I don't know about each of you, but this week, I think I'll speak for myself, I felt it a little bit more. I spoke with a couple of students. I think we're all feeling it. We've all been running 500 miles an hour through this entire process. We appreciate everything you're doing. I know the students do from our conversation yesterday with them. So thank you for that. Good news is, hang in there. There's only 5 weeks to go to get through the rest of the semester. We're so close, so please continue to hang in there. And if there's anything we can do to support, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or any of the other deans. With that being said, I do want to thank you. You all absolutely rock. If you do want to see me stop using cheesy and corny clip art, send more photos to Stacy and I'll use more of those, hoping that that's an incentive. I'm going to pass it over now to Dean Rogan.
Sorry about that. I needed to unmute. So I'm giving us our friendly neighborhood COVID-19 updates. And one of those is that the governor's order that we all know about has changed how we're doing some operating here. But it does still allow us to come to campus. Just we're cutting down the number of us who are here, how often we're here, and when we're here, it can only be for the essential function that we're here for, and other than that, we will be leaving. So just to keep you aware of how that's changed a little bit. We wanted to let you know about base camp, which you've probably seen a lot of this week. It is optional. For us right now, it's helping make us feel connected to each other for some of our projects and helping us keep track. If it's one more thing you can't think about right now, don't, no worries. The other thing is that we really are trying hard to keep some student engagement alive during COVID-19. You're all doing it in your classrooms or your student success calls in various ways. One of the ways we're trying to do it just for the college is that some of the clubs and organizations have they have recently started meeting again or trying to meet again. So we know PTK, Vet Tech, and Student Senate are meeting or trying to meet right now. We also have the town hall for students. Yesterday was our first one. We had 29 students. We were very excited. And it was really a great session. And we'll be hosting a student listening session. So trying to make sure the students understand where their forum is on the top of our list. Graduation is officially postponed. I'm sure you all have assumed that or heard bits and pieces. We have the graduation idea committee co-chaired by Tracy Cornell and Danielle Ebrecht, preparing a few ideas for us. I'm sure they'll be seeking your input. They're going to present a few ideas 2 weeks from now, and we'll get to look at them. That's all for COVID-19.
Thank you very much. We're going to jump right on in just again, time-wise, and there might be some conversation, but to frame our FY21 budget process, I think we have to realize that we're not sure how this is going to impact community colleges beyond. I think there's going to be a number of opportunities for us. I have been doing budget planning and projections. I've been in higher ed for over 20 years. I've been doing budget planning and projections for over 10 at detailed levels. And I will say that this is the most fascinating time that I've ever seen, because the range of the budget projections are literally all over the place. And we'll get into that a little bit more next week. If we stay on the trend that we were, we know with the decline in high school population, a new student enrollment has been trending down. We also know on the flip end that traditionally in a bad economy, enrollment increases in community colleges. So our range with planning our budget is going to be all over the place. I just want to give huge kudos to Associate Dean Gill. Nick has been incredible. We've been running a number of scenarios. There's some more that I want to connect with him on, and we'll share some of that stuff next week as well. But I think as we start to, I want to lay the foundation there, as we start to envision, regardless of anything else, where we are and what we're doing. I just wanted to open up and have some conversation on that. I do want to thank one of my mentors, Dr. Catherine Addy, for her permission to use and modify her PowerPoint. She and I spent quite a bit of time over the last week having some conversation. Catherine is the interim president over at Great Bay right now, but spent about a decade as the president at Berkshire Community College in Massachusetts, and then over 25 years as a president down in the Connecticut Community College system. So thank her immensely for this, and I want to give kudos and not take full credit myself. I think as we start to look at ourselves and moving forward, it's going to be really important that we understand who we are and who we think we are here at the college. And that's one of the goals that I have in the listening sessions tomorrow morning. And you will all see this when we go over important dates. Tomorrow morning will be the first faculty staff listening session. It's at 9 o'clock. We will also offer listening sessions on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. In total, there'll be 4 listening sessions for any faculty and staff that want to participate. And it really is an opportunity for me to listen and to hear from you. What are the things we do well? What do you think our opportunities are? Where are areas that we can improve? This is not, I want to stress this, we all have 5 million things on our plate. This is not a requirement. Do not feel obligated. It's just an opportunity for me to try to connect with the community. In an ideal situation, these would be face-to-face small group sessions, so we really get a chance to meet and connect with one another. So I want to start with faculty and staff. In terms of students, we need to find out who they say we are, because that's important. We might have one vision, they might have a different vision, and perspective is very, very critical on that. We started that conversation yesterday during our student town hall. That will continue this Thursday. There'll be a student listening session that I'll conduct with students to hear their input on who they say we are as well. The tricky part right now is going to be getting that information from employers. I think the plus part for us is we do have some of that anecdotal information from the advisory board session dinner that we did about a month or so ago. We also know that a number of our department chairs have some of that information. So this will be a work in progress. We're not going to solve and answer all these questions today, tomorrow, or next week, but we'll work towards it. I think one of the things that will be interesting now more than ever is we also have to determine who we serve. The landscape for colleges as a whole, but community colleges post-COVID-19, I think is going to look drastically different. If you look historically, major events, the Great Depression, any of these other ones, there were major shifts that happened in the culture following those events. And I think we might see some of those, and those might impact us here as well. I do want to go back just to the first part about who are we at York. For me, I want to hear from each and every one of you, but I just want to reiterate once again that I think the greatness of York County Community College, the strength is the people, is the faculty, the staff, It is everyone that works here. And it has never been more evident, I'm sure, and I can't imagine it being more evident than over the course of the last 3 weeks. So I think that says a lot about who we are moving forward. We know, and I won't read each of these, hopefully for those of you that can see this, and we'll send this out, you'll see it, but we know that there have been for years, for decades, there have been a number of forces that impact the environment of higher education, from economics to demographic changes, global trends, government policies, educational practices. These are things that we need to keep in mind as we start thinking about our future, FY21 and beyond. Likewise, we also know there are a number of players out there that influence the agenda of higher education on a national level. Here at York in particular, we have Achieve the Dream that has really played an influential part within the main community college systems, Complete College America, but we also know the Department of Education, we know the Community College Research Center, all really play a role in how we define, and I say we in that situation as higher ed, how we define and measure success. So those are things that we're going to have to take under consideration as we start thinking forward. The interesting part here is there are a number of things that we have to think about now that we didn't think about, or I didn't think about 20 years ago when I started in higher ed. One, pandemics. We're seeing this. Knock on wood, Lord willing. They say a pandemic comes around once every century, and hopefully that will be the case. But we also know beyond pandemics, we have to be training and responding to campus safety emergencies on campus like no other time in history. And you know, right now, COVID-19 is dominating the news, but prior to that, how often did we see different situations that were on the news that involved safety and issues on college campuses or in high school? So we need to stay vigilant to that. We also know that we're dealing with more severe weather. We know that we're dealing with helicopter hovering parents. In the age of technology, I think every single day one of us gets some type of phishing scheme or scam on in our email. So we need to be aware of security breaches online. Other issues that loom, and I do think these are reflect some of the things that we're facing here at YCCC. We have an aging campus and infrastructure. Those are things that we need to pay close attention to. The cost of technology and cybersecurity are things that we need to be aware of. We also know that the high school population is declining, especially in the Northeast. Maine and New Hampshire are both in that category. And we know the social unrest and uncertainty that existed prior to COVID-19. I anticipate that there's going to be some of that unrest and uncertainty that gets heightened post-COVID-19. Fundamental to us, I think, as a community college is I think we have to ask ourselves whether or not we believe in the 7 basic components of a community college. And these are the components that really served as the foundation of community colleges. 1, do we believe that there should be an emphasis on instructional resources? Do we believe that competence in technology is critical? Do we believe in the importance of improving and maintaining physical plants? Do we embrace the role and the importance of social and cultural activities so our students are well-rounded and they get a full college experience? Are we truly committed to access and opportunity in the light and spirit of what community colleges have in the past? What is our role in meeting community needs? We're seeing that right now during COVID-19. And how do we participate in the economic development of not only our community, but the state and the nation as a whole? These 7 components have served as the foundation for community college in planning and leadership since the beginning of time for community colleges. And I think it's important for us to ask ourselves that. For me, these things still are relevant, but these are things that I want to hear from each of you, and we'll have some of those conversations. What about this perspective? And I think this is a little bit of shift that has been going on for years, but I think it's more relevant now than ever. The National Association of Colleges and Employers, NACE, has been doing a survey with employers for the last 50 plus years. For the last 20 plus, the top 10 skills that employers sought in employees were soft skills, problem solving, critical thinking, conflict resolution, active listening, team building. How are we building these skill sets into our curriculum? How are we building them into any co-curricular activities that we're doing? I think we need to stay aware of that, and we need to make sure that that is playing into our future planning. Beyond all of that, like that's not enough for us to tackle, like that's not enough for us to think about. We know that there are societal things that are beyond our control, and how many have said one of these things, if not all of these. Our K through 12 system is broken. The issues with the economy. We had issues with the economy prior to COVID. It's probably going to look much different post-COVID. At one point, I think just 4 weeks ago, Maine had the lowest unemployment rate in their history. In just a 2-week period, and went up 20,000 additional people met the unemployment. It's estimated that by the end of this week, we'll go from 20,000 people being unemployed to over 60,000 people. There's going to be some issues there. We know the issues with environment. We know the lack of social mobility, the issues that cities are facing, and of course the issues with our healthcare system. So I suggest that these are some of the questions that we need to ask ourselves, not only in the FY21 budget, but I do think it's critical that we're thinking about this now. Are we capable of the systemic change that may be necessary in the coming years? I wouldn't even say decades on this, in the coming years. Are we truly committed to the promise of giving access to students regardless of background? And how do we eliminate, if we are, how do we eliminate those barriers for students to access higher education? Are we committed to modifying our structures, practices, and curriculum to meet the needs of today's learners and the needs of the communities that we serve? And are we truly, truly committed, and are we willing to embrace our role in helping individuals and citizens with social mobility? All about perspective. I'll let this speak for itself. This is one that just resonated with me. All the questions that we're asking, I think there are going to be different perspectives, and it's important that we understand each and every one. Some of us, we're going to see the boat in the water. For those of us that are in the boat, we're going to see the land. Things that we need to remember, both going into FY21 and future planning, transformation will not and cannot occur in a vacuum. We also need to realize that maintaining our status quo will not help us remain relevant. And this is something, this is one of the reasons why I came to York. Everybody in every interview, you all spoke to this, and it speaks volumes. So I think the sense that York and the faculty and staff have already been feeling this puts us a step ahead of so many of our sister schools and so many of our fellow higher ed industry people. We also need to recognize that we cannot remain wedded to an industrial era model in a operating model in a technological era. I always say this, you know, higher ed in so many ways, we do so many ways the way that we have for the last 100 years. Technology has changed, it's advanced. York has always been ahead of the curve, and we saw that right now. The fact that we have so many of our programs that were already online, and we had that ability to flex in this situation and move things. And faculty, I have to say this because I talk to colleagues all over the country. Our faculty and our staff rallied around this so quickly that it is amazing. So I think we're open, and we realize that we need to look at doing things differently. In order to do this, we have to create a climate that makes our evolution possible as well as inevitable. So here's what I would like to suggest, or here's what I think we need to think about. We must think holistically and no silos. We have seen that during our COVID-19 response like no other time before. We have faculty, staff, student services, all working with one common goal, and that's our students. That's amazing. How can we build upon that moving forward into FY21? How can we build upon that into our future? We have to redefine roles, the roles of higher education, how we're going to look at things. We need to learn from this situation moving forward. We need to diversify our funding basis, and part of that is on me of looking and trying to find new avenues of revenue. We know a large portion of our revenue comes from state appropriations. The other large portion comes from tuition dollars, whether it be credit-bearing students, non-matriculated, or the high school concurrent and dual students. We have to increase our revenue sources in terms of workforce development, and there's a lot of opportunities there. And we need to build a baseline for us to be able to show our worth and our value to the community, so we can build a base with business and industry supporting us at even a higher level than they already are right now. We need to provide students with more options for defining success. Again, going historically, when I first joined higher education, success was a degree. It was a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree. What we've seen over the last 10 years, certificates now matter. What we've seen with business and industry in terms of Microsoft, Apple, Google, they're saying you don't even need a degree anymore. It's more skill set. How can we stay relevant and redefine what success is in meeting those needs for business and industries and our students? This will tie into a slide later on. I think we're well equipped to do that. We must recognize that continuous learning has to be a priority and organize ourselves. And continuous learning in the sense for adult learners or people in the workforce, but also continuous learning for each and every one of us in higher ed, and making sure we're staying on track and we're staying aware of the changes in our industry and the changes in our community. So how does all of this apply to York County Community College? We have to pay constant attention to our program relevance. And I think it's something that we do a very good job of right now. How do we improve that? We have to continue to build the relationships in the community. I've been very impressed with the relationships that do exist. Once again, how do we improve upon that? Let's continue to work with the K through 12 system. Can we be innovative and creative and find new ways to partner with them? We now, more than ever, post-COVID-19, need to recognize the needs of adult learners. The good thing for us is York was founded on that spirit. And I think we need to make sure that we're looking at everything and finding ways to serve the adult learners that are underemployed, unemployed, or looking for an opportunity for social mobility. In order to do all this, we need to make sure that our budget reflects our priorities, and that hopefully that process will start during our FY21 budget process. Most importantly in this is a lot of work. This is going to be a lot of conversation we have, but it's going to be exciting, and we have to embrace that adversity. We're going to probably in this process have to have a lot of difficult conversations, but I think if we embrace that adversity, we truly do have an opportunity to revolutionize education. And you've heard me say that before, and I'll say it again. I do believe that we can be on the forefront of revolutionizing how we serve students and how we serve our communities. You know, the saying goes, significant change occurs when there is a confluence of changing values and economic necessity. The question is, are we there yet? I think we are. I think we're going to be in a unique position to impact our communities like at no other time in recent history, and I'm excited about that. And I'll also admit it's scary as heck. My last thoughts. Higher education in general is an invention of the 20th century, but we truly, and when I say we, I mean community colleges, are truly potentially the only institutions of higher education that can evolve enough to prosper in the 21st century. Community colleges are known for being nimble, being quick, and being responsive. 4-year schools typically struggle with that. Coming out of COVID-19, we are going to be faced with a unique set of challenges that we haven't seen before, but within those challenges, there's going to be a unique set of opportunities for us to serve our students, to serve the businesses in our communities in a different way. And we are best, I believe this with all of my heart, we community colleges are best equipped to do that in comparison to 4 years. So I know that's a whole heck of a lot of information in a very short time, but I wanted to start the conversation, hopefully start some conversation and dialogue, get everyone thinking a little bit. That's my part there, but beforehand, I want to see if there are any questions, thoughts. I'm curious to hear what people think. And Dean Rogan, maybe you can go through and share some thoughts that you're seeing in the chat.
The first one I want to share is that we want to thank our amazing adjuncts for everything they did to help pull off COVID-19 1-week switch around. We couldn't have done it without them, so thank you. The other is, yeah, another is that the notion that we really are going to learn a lot from this experience, and it will very much likely impact how we do business going forward. But I think that's it. I don't see any other questions or comments. Mike, I think you're muted.
Other thoughts? If there's anything that anybody wants to share, please, you can raise your hand. I think I can unmute you if you're there. I think we're finding ourselves at a very interesting crossroads. And I do see one person that raised their hand. I just have to go in. There we go. I think we find ourselves at a very interesting crossroads. And I can't, well, lower, I don't want to lower all hands. There we go. Peg, let me see if I can get you. There we go. You're up, Peg. Just unmute yourself.
So my question is, that I typed into the chat, I love the pictures that we're sending, but I also want to know if we are marketing the daylights out of summer and fall online courses.
Yeah, great question. And the answer to that is yes, we're in the process right now. Stacy and I have been talking on a regular basis. We are going to try to do some really big targeted marketing. We're doing our regular digital marketing, but we're doing some targeted marketing in terms of a direct mail piece. Stacy's working on something right now where we're going to really target one of the populations that we're targeting is strictly Dover and Rochester. And for that marketing campaign, New Hampshire, we're going to really emphasize the quality, affordable education that we offer here at York, and that tuition is at a lower rate than the in-state New Hampshire rate. We're also in the process of planning out targeted marketing things in York County to the unemployed or underemployed, or individuals that want social mobility while they're staying at home. And then I think the third target that we're trying to figure out right now is a combination of that high school population and the student population that would typically be going back to school. Are there opportunities to transfer right there? So there's been a lot of conversation. I think there's a lot of initiatives, and we'll have more shortly. Dave Daigle and senior leadership have also been working really hard on this full-time initiative. And we'll have more to share on that next week with you, because I think some of the graphs where you see the importance of the full-time initiative, we recognize our students are in a difficult spot in COVID-19. And the question is, how do we help them enter that workforce in a quicker way when and where it's appropriate? And one of the ways that we can do that is we can help accelerate their completion time. So we're trying to explore some of those things. So multi-tiered, long-winded answer. Short answer is yes, but there's still more to do.
Can I follow up?
Please.
So superintendents are sending out a ton of stuff to high school kids who are sitting at home, and parents sitting at home with them might be more inclined to read information that says maybe your high school kid could take a course this summer, because they're sitting home driving parents crazy. So I think taking advantage of what they're already sending out, I'm getting updates from superintendents every day for my son. And if we could throw a note in there about registration for summer is open, I think they'd be amenable to that, because they certainly want to keep these kids learning. The slippage is going to be more than ever with these kids sitting home for so long.
I think that's a great idea. We do want to target, we do think there's a unique opportunity, especially with Summer 1, to get some of the high school students where they can get dual credit at both places.
Yep.
I love the idea of reaching out to superintendents. Dean Airy, maybe you can write that down and we can try to do some exploration on that.
Mike, I actually forgot to mention registration in my COVID-19 update, so might I chime in a little bit here?
Please.
I think most people know that registration for returning matric starts Monday, and Wednesday starts registration for new matrics, non-matrics, I'm sorry. And for summer, right now, we took off all the face-to-face sections, We will put on face-to-face in summer too if things change rapidly and we're allowed to. But at this point, we're assuming summer is all online unless we hear otherwise. And fall, we have our standard schedule, so students can register for both. I just saw questions on both of those topics. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or thoughts from people? Please feel free to, if you can raise your hand. If not, I'll move on. I do want to answer one of the questions. There are a couple of things that are coming up here. Is there a deadline for when we determine if fall will be online? There will be, and this comes from Mike Lee. So Mike, thanks for the question. We've been focusing on summer 1, summer 2 right now, but I do think inevitably we're going to have to come up with a deadline. I don't think we've determined that because we've been trying to wrap up summer 1, summer 2, but that is on the docket for us to talk about. And hopefully, right now, the information that we're receiving from the CDC and the World Health Organizations in the system has been very helpful in this, is it looks like Maine's going to hit its peak in the middle towards the tail end of April. But that really is all dependent on what's happening in Massachusetts, what's happening in New York. As of right now, what we have determined is we won't even look at doing anything face-to-face until June 1st at the earliest. So I think that's the next evolution and conversation we need to have. We had a lot of other questions there, so I'm going to let Dean Rogan read those. There was one that I'm just going to respond to in terms of Charlie mentioned looking beyond entry-level training. Charlie, you're spot on. I agree with you. I think that's a unique opportunity for us to expand our workforce development and do some of those advanced training things. I know Kristen has been working hard with Dean Rogan on trying to lay out some specific things to COVID-19 right now. Dean Rogan, I don't know if you want to speak about some of the work that you both have been doing.
Yeah, I think it's really just been Kristen and actually Bill Fredericks helping her out some. They're looking right now at moving some healthcare related trainings online, things like phlebotomy and some assisting work in the medical offices. We still have some pieces to get around where they'll still need to do some face-to-face time for things like live sticks. But there's a lot of focus on workforce development right now. We had a meeting, Kristen and I had a meeting yesterday with Maine Health, and they're looking at doing an accelerated medical assisting program through Workforce and Equality Center. And we're also looking into grant money through the system office for a facilities technician and an industrial electrical technician. So there's a lot of workforce in the air.
And I think there's going to be a lot more opportunities there. I have to say, every time I read the chat, I just actually makes me smile. I truly love York County and all of you. I mean, the ideas that are coming in are just incredible. You know, the ideas in terms of partnering with high schools, absolutely. We will try to turn over every single stone that we possibly can, and whether that is through the dual concurrent or embark, those are going to be critical to our future planning. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into the budget for next year. And I think these are all things that are going to help really lay out our strategies and our plans, which is really exciting. Just keep them coming, keep thinking. Everybody here has been so willing to think outside the box, which is something I truly, truly value and appreciate. Kristen actually just talked about, we just applied for the pharmacy technician and billing and coding specialist. That's awesome. Thank you. So I think there's a lot to be done there. There's a lot of opportunity. I do think that we find ourselves in this really interesting crossroads. I think our future is unbelievably bright for so many different reasons, but first and foremost because of the people that are here. We do find ourselves in this awkward period where we have been struggling enrollment-wise. We know the difficult budget crunches that have been going on. We need to own that, and we need to recognize it. The question is, how soon can we come out of that is the part that we're trying to figure out through some forecasting. I think, you know, 2-3 years from now, we are going to be a much different school. I believe, and I've said this to senior leadership, and I will say this over and over again. I think within 2-3 years, we will be leading the system on so many different categories, but I also think that we will be at least number 3 in enrollment. I think there's so much opportunity for us to grow. We haven't touched the surface of what we can do, and working collaboratively, we will get there. Some of the questions that, speaking of that, some of the questions that came up, so you all have the information as we have it. We've been having a lot of conversations about what are the other ways besides our quality academic programs? How do we continue to grow enrollment? And we'll get into the weeds of this a little bit more next week with the FY21 initial budget part. Of course, the community knows that we've been looking at esports. There have been some initial conversations of whether or not looking at intercollegiate sports are those things that help draw people in. I think it goes without saying, and this is something that I heard from the community during my interview process as well. The more of a true student experience that we can give the students, the more opportunity it is for us to attract those high school populations. I also think, though, that we're in a unique spot right now going into next year's budget, that we need to look very carefully at what we roll out next year and what we don't. And I say this from somebody that has been an intercollegiate athletic coach for years, that oversees a national organization. We want to make sure if we are invested, I will say this, we are 100% committed to esports. I truly would like us to explore intercollegiate athletics. I think we need to do a little bit more of some investigation there. I think the question for me is, if we're going to invest that money now in a tight budget process for next year, we need to ensure that we're going to get the enrollment benefit from that immediately next year. So we'll explore that a little bit. We're going to play that out. What's hurting us right now, to put it all on the table, is it stinks because we don't have the esports built. We can't showcase that. We can't play it out, and we haven't had a ton of interest at this point. So if we are going to do either of these things, we need to know that it will drive the enrollment. For our budget next year, first and foremost is going to be the quality of education that we provide to our students. That is the #1 budget priority. And the second budget priority there is it going to help us drive enrollment? So that's how we'll weigh those things out. And then from there, obviously looking at the impact on students, our community, the communities that we serve in the individual communities. So we will look at that stuff. It might be a little bit of a process, but we'll get there. That being said, anything else that we really need to address right now in those chat room, Dean Rogan?
I think we're good. I think people have been talking back and forth to each other about the dual enrollment and concurrent enrollment and the relationships with the high schools. So
that's awesome. I am going to now pass it over to Dean Ellis so he can do the intro to the FY21 budget plan and process.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. Thanks, President Fisher. I went through, if you go to the next slide, I just want to communicate that we're still on track to do our FY21 budget. We're a little bit behind where we were last year and years before because we really wanted to have President Fisher here kind of laying the groundwork for us. We'll be sending out all of the budget worksheets next week to all the different budget managers so they can fill them out and send and provide those to the deans. Once the deans have approved them, we'll take everything and put it down and look at it from an SLT team to just evaluate where we are with our spending. Key areas is obviously the operating in your areas and also a capital plan. We're going to be sending out the files next week, so you can expect that in your email, and we'll have communication on the timing and some of how we're looking at you presenting your budget for this year. President Fisher?
Thank you. Uh, we want to try to have as inclusive of a budget process as possible. I know there was some conversation in terms of doing budget hearings for the budget. Quite honestly, everybody has enough on their plate right now. I think that's something that I want to push off to next year unless it's for capital improvements for your program. And the reason why I do that is we're probably going to be on a tight budget anyways. Everybody's absolutely stressed out. On the capital side, I do want to start looking into our programs and what programs need in order to grow their enrollment, in order to make sure they're relevant, and in order to make sure the students are getting the training and working with the equipment that they need to take the next step. And that's whether the next step moving on to a four-year institution or to enter the workforce right away. So we're trying to develop a game plan right now for people that do want to submit any capital plans. The plus on capital plans, so everybody knows this, is we will not, because we know the budget will be tight no matter what next year, we're not going to budget operating dollars to capital improvements. We will utilize our reserve funds to help with those because they're one-time expenses and it doesn't impact the operating expenses of students. And the reserves really are laid out on what we can use them for. Likewise, beyond our reserve funds, I have already requested assistance from the Foundation for Maine Community Colleges, President Degler. I've had these conversations. So we're hoping that we're going to get some support on increasing and improving the quality of our facilities and the quality of our classroom and the learning that's going on. But for now, I think we're going to hold off on budget hearings unless it is the capital improvement side. What I will say, there might be a situation when you get initial numbers from Sam that you say, okay, I can't operate with that. If you do need increases, that might be something where we try to get people on the call and go from there. So we want to be respectful of your time and how much each and every one of you have going on. Any questions in terms of the budget process? Can anybody want to raise their hand? You can. I'll look real quick. Good. Move on to important dates. Just so everybody has these. I will be conducting the first listening session, option 1, at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. If anybody wants to get up early on Saturday morning and jump on that call, you're more than welcome. Again, please know you do not need to jump onto that call or that Zoom meeting. And an email was sent out with all of these sessions with a link. So if you do want to, please, if you don't have that link, please email me and I'll send it back out to you. As Dean Rogan, Doreen mentioned, on Monday, a returning student registration opens. We spoke about our traditional numbers we retain about 47% of our students from spring to fall, the following fall. It would be great if we can enhance that and increase it. Retention is truly everyone's business, and I know we have a lot going on, and I know that we already do so much in this, and you don't need me to remind you. But anything that we can do will be helpful for us, for the students, and for helping them continue on their path. Our economy and our state are going to need our students to enter the workforce or to move on to a four-year school so they can enter the workforce quicker. So anything we can do to help that will be critical. You'll see on next Friday, you'll see some of the scenarios. The impact, we know data-wise, and I recognize that data can be spun in different directions, and I recognize that people have different views and takes, but there is enough national data out there from multiple organizations, from Complete College America to Achieving the Dream to the Community College Research Center to the Carnegie Foundation, that shows the benefits of students being enrolled full-time. We know that data. I understand some people might not believe it completely. I'm not here to debate on that situation, but as a college and as an institution, we are going to embrace that data. That's data that's been supported across the country. But we also recognize that not all of our students will fall into that category, and everything is a unique situation. But if we can start the first conversation as students enroll with full-time and have them try to opt out. I think that's a good starting point for the students, and you'll see the impact for us moving forward. And that's not only for returning students, but for new students coming in. We'll have those conversations. Tim, please hear me. There are always exceptions, and I want to stress that with it. But I think if we start the practice there, it's going to be most important. Also on Monday, a Monday night at 6 p.m., I'll do a listening session if that time's more convenient for people. Tuesday, we'll do a 7:30 a.m. listening session if that time's more convenient for people. And then Wednesday, we will open new student registration. I know that admissions, Fred, his whole crew, Dean Airy are focused right now. We have a number of students that are in the pipeline, and we're trying to develop game plans to convert them from the pipeline into the registration part as much as we possibly can. The next part would be Wednesday, April 8th, a listening session, option 4 to 12 p.m. And then next Friday, I think will be a good meeting and an important meeting for people to come to because we'll roll out the initial budget, FY21 budget review. This gives us another week to look at the data that we're seeing, looking at some regional and local trends as well as some national trends, and to lay it out because that will build the foundation to go forward. I see some questions here. Are we focusing on adult students or traditional students? The answer to that, Steve, Professor Pallone, is we're going to try to do both with some targeted marketing. I think there is an opportunity to target some adult learners that are going to need some retraining or want to shift careers. So we're developing some strategic marketing plans. We will still do this massive marketing piece with digital campaigning, but we do think that there's an opportunity to do some direct marketing. We are redirecting. There was a pool of funds that was in the president's budget that we are redirecting those funds directly into marketing for the rest of this year to help with those direct marketing campaigns. So let me see. Combining game development classes, agreed. Let's see. We need more happening on campus. 100% agree with you, Charlie. We have some ideas there. Hang tight. I think one of the things that the senior leadership team has learned from me, I have a lot of ideas and I want to run really fast with them, and I need to slow down a little bit. I'm hoping that we're going to have some additional exciting initiatives for everyone next week when we talk about the FY20 budget on ways that we're going to recruit people, in ways that we can also have more going on campus and create more of a hub and more of an excitement for students on campus. So when they come here, their first experience is really powerful when they meet with admissions straight on through. So hang tight on that. I do hope that we'll have some exciting ideas for you that we would love to have some input on. If anything, you're going to have to tell me to slow down. You don't ever have to worry about me running too fast because I will do that. And if you can see the smiles on the dean's faces, I think Jason has said repeatedly, hang on, I think is his saying. But we'll get there, but we'll do it together. I don't want to make decisions unilaterally. I want to make sure that we're vetting them through the senior leadership team, and then we're giving the community an opportunity to engage in that discussion before we finalize anything. That is all that we have, and we're under the hour. So Dr. Fallon will be very excited about that. And then seeing if there's any other questions for people or anything that people want to say. If so, you can raise your hand and I can go through there. Diane, I'm glad that you do appreciate that. Thank you. Anything that the senior leadership team that you want to add?
President Fisher, I guess I would just amend my earlier comment and say, instead of hang on, let's go. And I think the community is ready.
Love it. Love it. Anything else? I thank you all again, and I say this sincerely. I truly wish there was a different word other than thank you. I am going to steal, and I might have this wrong, President Dagler, and he stole this from someone. What he said the other day was, I won't even say because I'm going to get it wrong. I'll have it for you for next week. But it's a combination of awe, because I continue to be in awe of each and every one of you, and gratitude. So awitude. It is amazing to only be here for 5 weeks and to feel like I'm a part of the community. I thank you so much, and I know everybody is running 500 miles an hour. Please slow down, take a deep breath. We will get through this together. You all have been amazing. We cannot thank you enough. Have a good weekend. Try to rest up, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stop. Good. Anything else? Anything that we need to go over? I'll connect with the deans. We'll go through. People are jumping off now. If we just wait a second, maybe we can take a couple seconds. And
It's still recording, I think.
I thought I